Boom, done.
All right. Do you want to take over? Do you want to introduce tonight?
Easy either way.
Let's do it. Go ahead. I'm gonna hear from you. I haven't seen you in forever, so I'm looking forward to hearing your voice.
Especially since Susan doesn't know who I am.
Oh, don't be
Spoiler! Now it's on the recording.
button too.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Maybe take that. Maybe stop recording and re-record. Yeah.
I can trim it. It's cool.
All right, y'all. Welcome to our first TSQA meeting of 2021. We're still virtual. So we're coming at you from Durham, from Hillsborough, from Raleigh, from Canada. We're coming at you from all over. Tonight we have got Janet Gregory. Yes, that Janet Gregory. She is one of the authors of, I think, the foundational books on agile testing. And she's a consultant. She does a lot of work with agile teams and kind of the mechanics of how we test, why we test, and how we can get testing more into our teams. She's one of my favorite humans, and I hope she's going to be one of your favorite humans. I'm going to toss it over to her in just a second, but just in case I forget at the end, our next month's meeting is going to be this really lovely lady named Marette. She is from Europe, so she's going to be coming at us midnight her time, and that's going to be really exciting, talking about exploratory testing. So we'll have that on the calendars as soon as possible. It's probably going to be the last or third, it's going to be the latter half of March, but I'll have the exact date for you at some point when I confirm with her.
I want to interject real quick before we begin. I like to do the round table. Does anybody have a job posting or is hunting for a job? Raise your hand or share it out in chat. You have a job posting, Jenny?
I like your optimism there. Yes, I actually have job postings. So we are looking for some senior test engineers here at Willow Tree. We're actually looking for them in all three offices: Charlottesville, Virginia, Columbus, Ohio, and Durham, North Carolina. Of course, we're all remote now, but at some point we will be going back into the office. So if you want to work in a different location, you would be expected to be in that location. They're great jobs. Ping me on either the tester Slack or shoot me an email, jenny.bramble@gmail.com, and I can talk you through a little bit more about what the job is, who it's good for, and kind of what the prospects are past this job. So.
All right. And then I also want to ask what if you have any interest in joining our Slack channel. Every time we get job offers or postings in our community, we try to share them out to our jobs channel in Slack. And then there's just a great community. If you ever have a problem or you run into and you want other testers to commiserate, there's a place so send me a message and I will invite you to our Slack. All right, now, without further ado, Miss Janet.
All right, all mine?
All yours. The floor is yours.
Let me share my screen. Okay, do you see the screen? Yes, perfect. Now to make the adjustments, because every time Zoom in its infinite wisdom takes and mucks around all of the windows, and so I can't see people anymore right off the bat. I have to change things around. Same with the screen and the chat and everything else. So if I want to see anything, I got to move it all around. All right, let's start. So thank you for that wonderful introduction, Jenny. It was great. Now, so I don't plan on speaking for the whole hour, so make sure that you have write down your questions and we can have a discussion at the end. That would be excellent. Now, I just want to talk a little bit more about me. It's probably one of my least favorite subjects, but I started as a programmer, and the only way that I thought of test results was bug reports. My next career was a QA manager in a waterfall kind of environment. Wasn't much fun, but I cared about test results a lot. I collected all kinds of metrics, everything I possibly could, but really, they didn't help me at all. The quality of the product was bad, and all the metrics that I could gather couldn't change attitude. But then I changed jobs and I got into Agile, changed my life. Um, but it changed my view of software development, including what I wanted to see from test results and what I wanted to report on. So then I started speaking and started writing about it and sharing everything I possibly could. I like quotations, so I like to start my presentations with a quote. I thought this one was a perfect one for here. Focus is the art of knowing what to ignore. And test results is really all about that. What parts are the good parts and what do we want to ignore? So I actually, this is a presentation that I'd given probably in 2013, quite a long time ago, but I brought it up, revisited it, changed a bit, but I Googled test results and something that came up was, of course, test results from a medical kind of thing. But I thought we could learn something from that. So these two pieces out of this study, um, the failure to follow up, right, on test results poses patient safety risks, which threatens the effectiveness, quality, and safety of patient care. If we could start to think about test results and how it affects our users, if it's doing any good, I think we could start to think about more effective ones. The second one, failure to inform the patients of their test results can have devastating consequences for their health. A little extreme, but really something to consider and think about. If we give ineffective test results, are we threatening our clients, our patients, right? Um, for sure, our customer care. So how do we think about and how do we even establish safe, effective test management? Um, and then how do we report it? So some of you folks might even be reporting or might even be creating testing applications or reporting test applications that report test results for medical. And that would be kind of an interesting thing to bring in this discussion. So if we take that medical example, so you go to the doctor, what do you want to know? So maybe the doctor says, yeah, all your test results are normal except for your B12 level. That's a little low. But your XXX it's pretty severe. What do you hear? You hear the pretty severe. And you might have missed everything else. The severe might not even be important, but it caught our attention. We may never ask about that low vitamin B, and yet vitamin B12 deficiency can be a real issue. So we sometimes miss the real issues because of how we report it. So what I want to focus on is making our telling of the test results better. So we focus on the right thing. What is it you need to know? Now, because I'm a consultant, and even when I was a working on teams, some people would come in and you'd always get this one person that would say, I want you. It's like you were saying before, Susan, about I always wanted to know why I had to do this. They want to give you, I want this report and don't forget that and give me this and I want these metrics, right? Now, before I ever give things to the people that are asking, I have some questions. So before I say yes, or even volunteer any suggestions, I start asking questions. So I'm going to go through some of those. Who wants those test results, right? So solutions, effective solutions. We need to talk to all the stakeholders. We need to think about decisions on who needs to know those uh, test results. How are we going to communicate them? How are they going to get acknowledged, acted on, right? So that requires collaboration and really needs to include everybody involved. But sometimes it's not who wants them, it's who needs them. So in one company I was at, I came in as the QA lead and one of the testers had been creating these metrics. It took her every Friday afternoon, a whole afternoon, to collect these metrics, and she would email them out to, the list was long. So I looked at these metrics and I kind of looked and I thought, I don't know what people use them for. So I started talking to the people she emailed them to. And it was all the way up the chain, VPs and everybody else. Every single person that got those emails, when I asked them what they did with them, is the first thing they did as soon as they see it come in, they deleted it. So who really needs to know? Now, different people need different information. Not everybody needs the same. So let's take that medical example again. I had an MRI on my hip a couple of weeks ago. The radiology folks gave me a lovely USB key with some really cool pictures of my hip. Could I read them? No, but they were really cool pictures, right? But they really didn't mean anything to me, and they didn't give me any of the results. They gave those to the doctor. So when I went to my doctor, she walked me through the results, explained things, and I had to say, can you tell me in layman's terms? Because I didn't understand even what she was saying. So she stopped, thought about it, and then told me what it meant. Also told me what the issues were, but what the options were, what the risks were. And then she gave me a copy of the report, which allowed me to go back home and research a little bit more so that I become familiar with it. But different needs, right? The doctor needed way different stuff than I needed at first, but I needed that information at a later date. So we have to think about those sorts of things. Different people need different things at different times. Another question that I ask is, what problem are they trying to solve? And this may be directly related to risks, technical, business, right? And I think we should start thinking about this as we first start asking questions about a feature or a release, right? Think about what you need to capture in test results, to think about what information is needed to show that we've mitigated or eliminated those risks. So, for example, yesterday, I love using government examples. Our province, equal to one of your states, just opened up a new website to book vaccinations, right? So everybody in our province, in nursing homes and frontline workers, have been vaccinated. So they decided that the next group of people is everybody over 75 years old. So they opened up this website to book your vaccination. And you can book 24 hours. You can go get it 3 in the morning if you want to. But within 3 minutes of going live, it crashed. So, right? What questions could we have asked early from a business perspective, from a technical perspective? Maybe a question to have asked was, how many people over 75 in the province and are not living in a nursing home, right? They would have had that information, could have tested for it, right? We could have prevented that crash in many different ways, maybe opening it for a few people at a time. So we need to think about it from the very beginning, understanding what problems they're trying to solve, because that will help us. So how much information is too much, right? I went into a company one time and I was replacing somebody on mat leave. She was a QA lead. And so we had this 2-week overlap. So on the Friday, she said, okay, Janet, you have to come in and see how all these metrics are gathered so you can give to the project manager. So I did that. I sat with her, I paired with her. I went, okay, got it. And so she left. The next Friday, I went and did all these metrics, and it's time consuming, at least an hour and a half it took of my time. And I looked at all of these things and I walked into the project manager, and she was really good, project manager's office, and I gave her these metrics, and she said, "Thank you very much," and I walked out. I did it the next Friday, except this time when went in, I asked her, I said, "So tell me, what do you do with these? Or, what is it that you want with these?" And she said, "Actually, I don't know. The QA lead before me told her she needed them. So I stopped doing them." I asked her, "What do you need?" And as it turns out, it was really, really simple. All she wanted to know was, what anomalies along the way did we have? And when we were in trouble, were there risks out of our control? Those are the only things she really wanted, which was a sit down and talk with her instead. So, how much is too much? How much is enough, or not enough, I should say? Well, just saying it works or it's broken, not enough information, right? So, how much is just enough? In one organization I was at, they had 5 different teams. Each team was doing pretty well. It was going, everything was going fine. They all had a scrum master, and then they had this, I'll call him a super scrum master. And every at the end of every iteration, so every 2 weeks, he would be pulling information from, I think it was Rally, they were using the tool. Um, Really good information about um, velocity, bugs, those sorts of things. But he put it all into PowerPoint slides and would give it to the VP and walk through it with him. So I was there on the end of the iteration. And so I asked if I could attend this meeting. And I said, "I'll observe." So I sat through it. I was quiet through the whole kind of hours. He's presenting this metrics from every single team and the summary. And at the end of the hour, I sat there and I kind of looked at the VP, and then I, I actually felt bad for asking this question, because that super scrum master was actually very good, and he was very proud of his stats. But I asked the VP, I said, "So in all this information, what is the most useful?" So he took out one piece of paper and he said, "This one." So but that started a discussion. And by the end of the hour, they figured out a very simple way of giving the results he needed. So turns out they saved them both an hour of their time the end of every sprint, and it saved a lot of paper, and it saved time from collating all that stuff, right? So how much is enough? Have the discussion, talk to the people, find out what they really need. Now, one of the things that people have a hard time is, what is the simplest way to capture the information? If it's automated, that's great, right? It's easy. It's what you're doing. Um, when I was in another team, uh, one of the best things about consulting is seeing all of these different things from different teams. Is this one organization was, they had about 5 teams in a big open floor space. Each team had a big screen TV above their work area, and you could just watch all the tests. As soon as somebody would check in, the build would start going. You could see all of the test results, the unit tests, the API level tests, and they just scroll by and scroll by. Really interesting to watch. But as soon as a test broke, the screen went red. That's all it did, just bright red. So everybody knew that the build was broken, that a test failed. It became the first responsibility of the team then to fix that. So test reporting, we often think in paper and different ways of doing it, but really thinking about who needs the information, how fast do they need that information? What is the simplest way to show it? Of course, there's different ways, different people. So internal to the team. I just gave you an example of how the team might need some kind of reporting, right? It's often more informal. If we have it internal to the organization, say those examples to the VP, right? He might need something different, or to that project manager. What about external to the customer or to the client, right? So I've sat with customers doing user acceptance testing and showed them test results, walked them through the tests that we have run, so they knew approximately what we had done and what they didn't have to do. So they didn't have to focus on that level of detail. And I found that that really built trust in between us and the customers. So really think about who's using this. And then making information visible. If the team sits down and has a strategy for thinking about how to make them visible, because transparency is probably, well, I think probably the most important thing that comes out of Agile, the biggest benefit that comes out of Agile is the transparency. Let's not hide stuff. So I think that if you can make it visible and it's simple and it's easy, then the team has more time to spend on doing valuable work versus just making reports and metrics and anything else. So I'm going to talk about a few different types of test results and some of the visibility. Ever seen these kind of test reports? Yeah, we all have, I'm sure. What do they tell you? Does it help anybody make any decisions about the product? No, not at all. Pretty useless, kind of, right? Now, we can take and extract all kinds of information from our tools these days, right? We can just take all this information and throw it out there. We can baffle them with, well, you know what I mean. More information does not necessarily mean better information. So we really want to be thinking about what is best. So what does your team need to know? Let's go internal in our team, because we often don't think about reporting test results to our team. Every time you run a build, every time it's green, right? That's a form of test results that your team can use. Instant feedback, hopefully. Perhaps we take and do, maybe as a team we want to know what testing is being done. So in this example, maybe we have exploratory test charters as individual tasks. Now this is something that Lisa's teams have done. I was never a fan of it, but I kind of, it's growing on me, because you can see what is being worked on, right? With a physical storyboard, maybe we could even put some high-level notes for the product owner to see on the back of a index card or whatever you use. But from exploratory testing, you probably are going to have some kind of notes. And so here's a partial test report. It's from one of Lisa's teams. She shares some examples with me. Where the testers did exploratory testing on the same project concurrently, different personas, different browsers, right? The cool thing is when you put them in, they used a wiki page, but someplace where people can find it. If they want to go see, if they want to go know what happened, that's the key. Visibility, easy to find. Now, here's an example of an automated test run. It was using Fit, running in reading in spreadsheets. It's from a team I was on many years ago, but I keep this example for many reasons. This particular one I show is because I could tell when a test failed. I could tell what test failed. I could find out exactly what was wrong. So those 2 lines in pink showed me what was expected, what was actual. This kind of test reporting is so beneficial for maintenance to be able to fix things, right? So we use this for internal use, but this is one of the examples where I could use this and show it to a customer and show them what we were testing. Mind maps, I'm a fan of mind maps. I usually use them for planning. That's my favorite way to use them. Um, it's the most useful for me. But I've also run into people who use them for test results. So you can, on the leaves, you can put in a color to say what it is. Maybe you make notes if it's on, if you have it in, if it's not a physical mind map, right? If it's electronic version, you can make notes on it. I had a student in one of my classes that told an example how they did all their test planning with mind maps, but then they printed them off and put them on the wall. And they created a way to show, so it was very visible so the whole team could see how each leaf, those little end pieces, because those are the tests, when and what the result was in a physical manner. I thought that was really cool. They didn't have any automation, and the particular thing that they were testing, which was their Twitter app, right, showed they could see it. It was very visible. So mind maps can be a really good way to show test results. Um, I just so before I go on to outside the team, well, no, I'm gonna share another story. I just thought of one when I was talking about the other one. We were talking about test coverage, and we were trying to automate, and we couldn't figure out. Um, we were really struggling to say, how are we going to show test coverage? How are we going to know what needs to be tested, what needs to be automated next? Um, we're automating the news stories, but all of the old stuff. So we took and had the business analysts create business flows, almost use cases, but not to that extent. And we pinned them up in one of the boardrooms all around the walls. They were on big flip chart sheets. And as we automated something, we would color it green. That was a form of test results, of metrics to show us where we were on our journey. So visible, easy, simple. I call this a feature matrix, and I've had mixed results. I've had some teams love it and some teams hate it. But what I would do after a release planning meeting, or a feature planning, well, a release planning meeting where you have multiple features, is write down all the features. So that's on the left. Store customer information, add to shopping cart. Across the top is what kind of test ideas, what are the things we want to test for this release? So at a high level. And then we would go through and gray out the things that aren't applicable. So for example, in store customer information, we wouldn't do calculations, we wouldn't be testing for currency. So I never had to look at that again. I would take that sheet of paper, put it on the wall, and use it as a reminder. To me, the value was in the planning. But in one team that we were doing this with, we were struggling to try to figure out how, and this is a different project manager, he wanted to know what was going on, and he was bugging the teams a lot. You know, are you done yet? Are you done yet? Are you done yet? That question. And so we came up with using our test matrix as a coverage kind of tool. So that's what these colors are. We decided to say green was good to go. Now, these aren't individual stories, right? So for store customer information feature, when the data integrity or the look and feel we thought was good, we would put a green sticker up, right? Yellow meant we've done some testing, we probably need to do more, but we'll assess the risk based on that. Red meant it was broken. Not that there was a bug, but it was broken. So what happened is that that project manager could walk by all the different teams and see where they were at. He only needed this high level. It was great, solved our problem. He quit coming to the teams saying, how are you doing? Are you done yet? Are you done yet? Right. Now, one of the things you need to think about when you're thinking about visibility, is it good for everyone? So if you think about people who maybe don't like the colors because they can't see color, maybe you need to think about how else could I show that? So you could put in things like, you know, crosshatches or lines, something to differentiate what you're trying to say. So think about your audience. Now, if you think about all those examples and what they have in common: visibility, availability, people can see them, they can get them when they want them, appropriate for the different audiences, right? Ease of use, well, easy for people to understand, but also, um, if we have to pull out tests or test results for things, try to automate it as much as possible. If you have to collect them manually, what is the simplest way you possibly can? And so you want to be thinking about how to um, keep it simple, but different levels. What might some stakeholders need? So that mind map, for example, maybe you don't need every leaf for larger stakeholders. Maybe you can collapse all the leaves and keep it at a higher level because they don't want all of that information. So let's think kind of a little bit more on that. Whatever way you choose to represent your testing results, and it will be different for every single context, um, one of the most important things, part of it, is telling the story, the testing story. The story is what is important. The test results, they represent the evidence to support the story. So if I think back on my MRI, what the doctor told me, the risks, the options, that what was important. The report that I got to go look up all of these weird names and figure out what it was, that was evidence supporting her story, right? Now, we need to think about the doctor giving me the results. I asked her to put it in layman's terms. How do we do that? Can we talk to our stakeholders in a language they understand? They being the operative word, right? Not that I can understand, but they understand. So who am I talking to? What do they want? What do they care about? Can I relate the results to a business objective? Maybe a KPI even. I shudder, but I maybe, right? Um, but when I talk about risks and impacts relating to the results, um, can I say it will affect this many customers? We need to let the decision makers judge the risk. Maybe there's only one bug to be concerned about. Um, we say, you know what, it's high priority bug, but how do we make them really stand up and pay attention that it's really high risk? Maybe we say something like, if this bug makes it to production and a customer finds it, it will be front page news, right? That grabs attention. You can't say it all the time, but it would, right? So we really need to be thinking about that. If we go back to that example of that vaccination web page, I wonder if the teams developing the website knew about the issue, but didn't or couldn't articulate the risk, or maybe they didn't feel enabled to suggest ways to mitigate the risk, like, you know, releasing it to people in smaller chunks or getting more load balancing and more servers. So this morning on Facebook, things get around very quickly on social media. And so there was this meme that come out, and in Canada, we like hockey, right? And in Alberta, our minor leagues, our hockey leagues are really suffering because they make their money by selling tickets. And so the government didn't want to just give them money. So they authorized a 50-50. We love gambling, right? 50-50 tickets. So the meme was that the top the top picture was a room full of servers for the 50, which was just authorized by the government. The vaccination website had a little laptop in running everything. What do we want to put our money to? How do we talk about the risks? And how do we tell the powers that be? And, and give them options, right? We need to give them options, like my doctor. You can do this, or you could do that. This is the risks. Now, just gonna kind of wrap up here, give us time for questions and discussions. Um, the test results: simple, visible, available, valuable, the right information, right? Remember that failure to inform patients of their test results can have devastating consequences. Yeah, our test results might also. Because you really want to know if you need surgery or a Band-Aid would suffice, right? Or what is the risk if I don't take supplements? Of course, there's always the risk that people don't want to hear the truth, that the test evidence may not be heard because it doesn't match what they want to hear, right? That confirmation bias. For example, there's a lot of evidence that smoking is bad. We all know it, but some people don't want to hear, they don't want to listen. So maybe you just don't pay attention. Or you might hear and decide you're going to take the risk anyhow, right? But as part of the delivery team, your responsibility, I believe, is to deliver the message the best way you can. The final decision, whether to release or not, is not yours. And sometimes, no matter what you do and how well you report and how well you tell your testing story, the train just has to crash, like the vaccination website, right? And that is the end. So these slide decks, and I know that you're going to share this, has my information on it. You can get a hold of me. There's all my contact info. And it is time for questions. And I am going to stop sharing so you're not looking at the screen and we can see people. There we go. We're back.
We're back. So
Thank you so much. That was amazing.
Thank you.
yeah, the idea of like considering your audience is, so often that's you forget like the simple thing of who are you trying to tell and what do they need to know,
Mhm.
and then
Yeah.
convince them with the right level of data.
Oh, yeah. And sometimes we don't even know what the right level of data is, right? We have to figure out what their problem is and then kind of start from there. What is the simplest way we can give you this information?
So
Yes.
there's a question on the table in chat that we're wondering what your advice is for making things visible in our remote world. So I love the idea of making a board and making it out like in a common space, but that's
Yes.
not
No.
our world.
So things like wherever the space is, if you can make some kind of dashboard so that you start when you're having your daily, if it's for internally kind of thing, um, maybe looking at that to start with whatever you have a daily stand up first thing, start with it perhaps, or just have it someplace where it's accessible that everybody can see it. And that will depend on the different teams, right? Um, I'm not even going to, Google Drive, but most teams don't use Google Drive anymore. So depending on your context would be the best place to do it, right?
Sure, that makes sense.
But someplace where people go and see it. Don't hide it 3 layers down in a folder called test results.
If you've got someone who does monitoring on the system, you could put your test results on that dashboard.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. There's quite a lot of chatter in here. We like your ideas a lot. I'm flipping through and I don't see any other specific targeted questions. Are there people that want to unmute and talk to their specific situation and looking for suggestions or ideas?
So, Janet, I had I'm going to call it a more theoretical, hypothetical question.
All right. Is it hard?
No, not.
Okay, Ken.
So since I'm a proponent of BDD and
Yep.
ATDD, okay, and I've had the interesting discussion. Let's assume that our testers, developers, and customers have all gotten together and said, these are the tests you must pass.
Yep.
Now, doesn't count exploratory testing, which is going to come later. My question is, do you think there should be a story released with a bug in it, or how a bug might get there? If there was a bug in a test that everybody's agreed represents it, should you just like say, we're not done with the story?
Yeah, so I'm a fan of zero tolerance bugs. So 0 bugs escaping an iteration, 0 known bugs escaping an iteration.
Right.
So my first quick answer to that is, yeah, find a bug, because you're going to find bugs. It might be, who knows, just fix it, right? Maybe
Right.
write a test for it. Obviously, there's a missing test, whether it's at a unit test level or maybe at a higher API level, write a test for it if it's a missing test. So I didn't even talk about defect tracking here, or reporting. I have this theory, and it's borne out by a few teams, that if you have, and fixing the bugs, right? So that you have very few open bugs at any time, there is no reason to monitor or have bug reports, because they're just being fixed, right? Takes away a whole lot of wasted time on triaging and all that other stuff. Did that answer your question? Kind of.
Yeah. So you're. I just want to be clear. So you're a zero bug person, which I am too. I'm going. You shouldn't issue it. So how about
If
you've just finished this story and now you can finally do your exploratory testing on it.
Yeah.
And that's when you discover something. Do you
So-
close the story or do you make up a new story?
it will depend, right?
Yeah.
So if I found something that is, oh, this would make this so much easier, that goes in a new story pile.
Right. Yeah.
If it's a bug that, you know what, we just missed this, it's going to crash the system, it's going to whatever, then don't close the story, just deal with that. If
Right.
I find a bug that is in the system and has been there for a long time, and we just happen to find it accidentally,
Right.
right? I might put it into a defect tracking system, depending, but I'd just as soon create a story for it and let's address it if it needs to be fixed. If it's been there forever and it's not bugging anybody, let's put it in release notes, and this is how our system works. And
So
forget
so then there might actually be bugs that you might just go, let's just throw this away. Nobody's heard of it.
Yep.
We'll just stuff it, take it out.
Yep.
I perfectly agree with you. I like to, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We have another question in chat that is intriguing to me as well. So
Okay.
Jianghao says, some of the stories are very technical in nature. The developer understands, but don't have time. They don't communicate the reason of the big picture. Are there any tricks to work with these developers to clarify stories?
So I'm going to go back to what Ken just said. BDD, acceptance test driven development. Let's work through some examples. So example mapping is a really good way to get clarification too. When I hear questions like this, I'm going to ask, when you say very technical in nature, what kind of a story might that be? Could you just unmute and tell me? Could you give me an example?
If you don't want to, I feel like I could make up a story that sounds familiar if you, so like system side.
Yeah, no, be more specific, please. Because system side is pretty big. You can unmute if you want, unless you don't feel comfortable.
I think of like the API, right? So the story is create an API endpoint to return a value.
Yeah, but then you can do contract testing and have those discussions around that, right? So you can give examples. You can start thinking about what tests I'm going to have. So I like to think about test first. So before you ever start thinking about how I'm going to implement it, let's think about how we're going to test it. Let's think about, so that's the question that I start with. How are we going to test that? So to me, an API level kind of story, system level, that's, I'm creating a web service for a third party. I need to know how to test that. So I'm not even going to start coding that until we know that, right? That conversation that's how you get the developers understanding, and you can use examples to really get that big picture. I start drawing.
One thing I like to do with developers like that is very, very gently tell them that if they can't explain it, they don't understand it.
Uh, that's true.
Which is, it's a bit of a jerk move and a
Yeah.
little bit nuclear sometimes, but legitimately, if you've got a developer who is refusing to explain something,
Yeah.
then I would be very concerned that they don't understand what they just did.
Yeah, well, I'll start drawing and I'll say, so can you tell me? And they'll start and they go, no, it's too complicated. And I'll say, well, from what we've had conversations, it sounds like, and I'll just start drawing and they'll go, no, no, that's not right. And then it continues from there. You got to get them started. And
The easiest way to get the right answer is to give the wrong answer and have someone correct you.
absolutely.
Yeah. They do like to correct you when you have it wrong. So if you give a very wrong example of the usage,
Yep.
they'll start to think through what the
Yep.
actual answer needs to be.
Yeah. And that's where that BDD stuff comes in, right? That's what it's all about, is getting that shared understanding before you ever start coding. And that's how you get that big picture. And and I'm going to guess that your stories are too big to begin with. That question alone just says your stories are probably too big. But I don't know for sure because I'm not there and I don't know your context.
I'm reading through chat. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay.
So first of all, thanks, Janet, for your presentation. It was amazing. And I'm struggling now that executives wanna ask me for QA report. I'm working at a startup. We never did that. Now everyone started interested in QA report and QA stats. And I did my homework. I asked them, guys,
Good.
what do you need? And the answer was like vague. There was vague answer. We know what in what state we are and where we are moving, and in what direction we are moving. And then they heard some buzzwords, and we need like test coverage and what is automation test coverage. So yeah, and I end up like doing some brainstorming and Googling, and still I created some sort of list of what I want to show them. Like, for example, I think it's going to be interesting, useful for them how many production issues we have from release to release.
Production issues is always a good thing to talk about.
And then I was, again, it's like just my brainstorming, number of regression issues we discovered, like how they broke, how developers broke the code during new feature implementations. Yeah, that's and some other, like what are your recommendations, or what can you advise?
So when I hear that they can't articulate what they want, which is all the time, by the way, I'll go back to say, what problem are you trying to solve? 99% of the time, the problem they're trying to solve by asking you this is they want confidence. So sometimes confidence comes in a very simple way, like red, green. We're good. We're not, right? Flags up and down. So that product owner or the project manager I told you that like that test matrix, he had two ways of getting confidence. One was that test matrix, just to see testing was going on and that hopefully there were no red, because red was something bigger. But the other way he had us showing confidence was we got all the testers every Friday. We got all the testers and subject matter experts and product owners into a room. And we'd stand up and he would ask a question. He'd say, how was your week? And we Roman voted. It was a good week. It was okay, bad, right? And so if everybody had thumbs up, good week, he'd say, see you on Monday, goodbye. If anybody had thumbs sideways, he'd say, anything I need to be worried about? And he'd go, no, it's just regular crap going on. He'd say, see you Monday. If even one person had thumbs down, he said, sit down, let's talk. That was his way of getting confidence. And that lesson to me said, all the numbers in the world aren't going to give him any more confidence than that simple up, down, or not. So I would suggest, do one thing as simple as you can and say, is this enough for you? Does this give you confidence? Or go back and say, what is it you are looking for? What problem are you trying to solve? What problem do you want me to solve? Because you could make a lot of different things and it's still not going to be the right information because it's not solving his problem.
Yeah, that's
Thank
really
you.
good.
Oh, you're welcome. I know I don't have a good answer. And unfortunately, there just isn't one answer.
There is no such answer.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions? Yes, Jenny, it does take psychological safety, but that built up over a long time, right? Because he never yelled at anybody. He just was honest and he said, let's talk about it, right? And so we did have a fair bit of safety in that place.
Yeah.
So I've got another general question.
Okay.
How do you get developers to participate in testing? I've been to groups where it's like developers go, no, we just throw this over the wall to the testers.
Yeah. And it comes back. That's why I have a job and have lots of consulting opportunities, because one of the things is trying to get them to really buy into that whole team, that when we start to do things, it's for the benefit of the whole team. So when I do things like give my test to the programmers first, even if it's not, just as a starting point, right? I don't get a full BDD going, but you know what? Here's my tests that I'm going to be running. Do they look okay? Right? All of a sudden we start that conversation, and it takes one developer to say, oh yeah, I'll make sure those all pass, right? And then pretty soon when that person's not getting so many bugs, somebody else is going to ask, and it kind of is an osmosis thing, right? Because they start to see the benefit, and that's the key, is them seeing the benefit. If they don't see a benefit, they're never going to do it.
So sorry. Where's that mute button?
Do.
One of my friends and I do a talk on a similar topic, like the working relationship between test and dev. And we've decided that it's a contract. Developers have something that they can offer testers. Testers have something they can offer developers.
Absolutely.
And the way we phrase it is that testers keep developers safe and developers protect testers. Because if I have to look for every single friggin' tiny bug, that's going to use up all of the mental space that I could be using to take care of the big bugs, the big things, the headline bugs. But if developers do their fit and finish and we have the conversations about what testing looks like, then in a way they're protecting me and I'm protecting them from the big stuff, because it's not their job necessarily to think about every single edge case. That's my jam. So
but I find that talking about testing first goes a long way to getting them thinking about testing.
Agree.
Right?
Absolutely agree.
Looks like we're starting to wind down. Ken, do you have more you want to ask? I do love to hear the banter between you. I know that you guys have talked before.
Oh, I could talk all night about this stuff.
So what you're saying is you'll speak at the meetup then?
Right.
Oh, I like this idea. Ken, would you get to come and do a talk with us?
I think I'm doing a talk on, I call it the BDD experience, 5 Shades of Gherkin.
That's at Triagile, isn't it?
Well, that's a triagil. I get confused. Okay.
We're all super cool.
Not even gonna talk about confusion. It happens with age. It does. It just, that's what I blame it on.
Hold it, the classroom looks the same. No, I was, the reason I asked that first question was I'm actually having a discussion, I'll call it, with another author who is revising his book, and he's sort of taking out BDD as a suggestion.
Why?
Interesting.
That's very interesting.
Oh, I thought so too. And he said he's found in his experience that customers don't look at the tests. And so the testers might as well just go and take the examples and code them up in JUnit or XUnit or NUnit or something.
Yeah. So even I'm a fan of, so BDD is not about writing Gherkin.
Right.
Right. So BDD is about getting a shared understanding.
Yeah.
So even if you never automated in any of those tools in that language, having those conversations is important.
But see, I see there's a second issue that I like to see my test in English language.
Yeah, I do too.
Okay, because that does take away from the implementation.
Yep.
And
So, yeah.
The other thing is that most of the tests, the most complex tests are all about the business rules.
Yes.
I mean, you take the ATM example, you get money in, you get money out. Come on, that's easy. But there are 232 business rules as to how much money you can take out of your ATM.
Exactly.
Right? And if you can put those in Gherkin, they become English readable.
Yeah.
And now they're not just tests. They're the documentation for your customer representatives. It's a twofer.
Yeah. So what Goico and David Evans call it living documentation.
Right, exactly. Right? Yep.
And that to me is the benefit. I'm a fan of tabular format wherever you possibly can, because it's easy to read, right? I can see a whole lot of different data all at the same time, but whatever makes it easy to see and understand so that you can document it. So that same example that I showed with the pink, right? One of the other types of tests we had was, it was a trading utility company. So the traders bought and sell electricity. So we read in spreadsheets that were like 17 columns of data. You know, you buy it at 2 a.m. on a Thursday on the 31st of the month out of, Atlanta. And they could sit there and they could tell you exactly what that number should be, whether a test was right or wrong. It was the spreadsheet was what they lived and breathed. So we made our tests to something that they could use. And I walk through it with traders all the time, trying to understand, right? And so absolutely.
So the spreadsheets were the tests.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Janet, it has been so great talking with you and everyone who joined tonight. Thank you for being here and spending time. I hope that you got some good tidbits. I know I did, that I'll be taking back. I actually might just share this entire conversation with my team because I've gotten so much out of it. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. My pleasure.
Yeah, this is amazing. Thank you so much, Janet.
Bye-bye.
I'm going to be sending out a poll via email kind of soon. Jenny, I want to connect with you on this. I'm wanting to hear from people about their willingness to come to a virtual / or not sure which mode of in-person for the conference. Like, where are people's comfort levels and how soon would they be willing? So just wanted to field a little bit of questions on that. So look for that in your email.
Sounds awesome. Yeah. And we are starting to already go ahead and plan TSQA 2022.
Awesome.
We just don't know what it's going to
Gonna-
look like at all.
It's like everybody else with every conference. Yes.
So,
Yeah, we're holding our breath that we'll be able to leave the house by then.
Yes.
yeah.
All
Thank
right.
you so much. I
Bye-bye.
love hearing from you so much, Janet. You're so wonderful.
Thank
And
you.
thanks everyone else for the great banter, the great talk, the great chat. Just so good.
Thank you.
All righty. Take
Thanks,
care.
everyone.
Hey.